Hope everyone's having a good conference. I know it's after lunch. About halfway through this, you're going to feel that starting to wear on you a little bit. So hopefully we'll keep you awake. A few questions, or a couple questions. How many people are active Chef users today, know about Chef and are using it? Wow. 1, 2, 3, maybe 5 people. Well, that probably negates my next question then of you 5 people, how many people have actually downloaded the Esri cookbooks and tried to use them? 1, 2, 3, 4, maybe 5 people, maybe a different 5, okay. All right, so who's excited to learn about Chef? All right, that's what I like to see, all right. Well, that's a good gauge for the topic today then. Okay, you are in the right place. This is ArcGIS Enterprise automating installation and configuration. I think I'll just sit down here. Oh, I'm Bill Major, by the way. I guess I'm supposed to introduce myself. I'm with Professional Services from the Vienna, Virginia office. And Cherry?
I'm Cherry. I'm with the the development team, the core development team, and I'm the product engineer on Chef project.
Right. Okay, so here's a quick overview of what we're going to do today. We're going to talk just briefly to tell you what Chef is, but really more about today is getting into our Esri cookbooks that we have published on GitHub. I'm going to take you through a single machine deployment. I think for a lot of users, even for me when I first got into this, I'm like, hey, that's great, there are cookbooks out there, but like, how do I get started? What's like step number 1? And I'm thinking that maybe that little simple demo I go through, maybe will get a lot of you guys hit it in the right direction. And Cherry's going to take it from there and get into some more advanced deployments and how to use Chef Server in a distributed environment, spinning up a lot of different servers and look at what that looks like within your environment. All right, the first thing we need to talk about though, just take a step back a little bit, is why do we need to automate the platform? In today's world, you know, the platform is driven by various advancements that are happening all around us, both within the ArcGIS platform as well as in the IT space in general. So there are aspects like the Internet of Things, there's drones, real-time data, big data. You know, automation is driven by the need to scale as appropriate. There are things out there like service level agreements, you know, being able to adhere to uptimes and various things like that. All of these are, you know, you have the need to be also things to be repeatable. One of the things we're going to talk about is you know, some of you may be in environments where you have a dev, a test, and a prod, and how do I make sure I can repeatedly install and configure one environment just like another environment to make sure things are going to work from there. So automation and scripting are becoming sort of the backbone of being able to automate or, you know, deploy some of these environments. When we talk about automation, we kind of break it down into 2 categories. Deployment efficiencies that can be achieved via automation, and operational efficiencies that are achieved through scripting and automation. So on the left we have you know, the infrastructure automation. If we, you know, dive into this a little bit deeper, we have things today that actually support you in this area, from software installation to configuration to even setting up how software can operate like in a highly available scenario or a disaster recovery. Esri today provides a number of tools to help you in this area. Chef, which we're learning here today. We actually have cloud formation templates for anyone that may be working in AWS. I guess the cloud formation templates exist in Azure too, in the same concept?
In Azure, it's actually it's a cloud builder we build, but it's also automation tool.
Okay. We do have a cloud builder, which Cherry mentioned, that actually uses the Esri AMIs that we provide in these environments to help stand up for you know, ArcGIS server sites and portal for you quickly. And then at 10.5.1, we have a new capability coming out called the Enterprise Builder. It's sort of a one-click installer that can deploy a WebGIS for you as well within your environment. So, all of these complement each other. These are all different strategies you can use, but today we're specifically going to talk about Chef. Another thing for automating your GIS workflows, once you have your environment installed and configured, then there are other technologies that you can use that we provide to help automate those workflows. We have the new Python API for ArcGIS that can help manage your WebGIS environment. There's ArcPy and RBridge for ArcGIS and various other tools as well. But we're not going to get into that today. Specifically, we're talking about Chef and deployment configurations today. So why automate? So there may be a number of reasons why you want to quickly automate your environment. There may be business critical deployments, such as what I mentioned a while ago, being able to establish a dev environment, make sure all the pieces, and then be able to repeat that in a test environment. Then you do user functional testing or something like that. Then once that's good, be able to repeat that again within a production environment. So a lot of times the ability to repeat exactly the same way is critical. If you have a ArcGIS Enterprise infrastructure and 14 different servers and each one may be licensed or configured a little bit different, you don't want necessarily one person to manually go through all 14 of those configurations because probably they're going to forget a checkbox along the way or something like that. So Chef can help automate consistently the way things are done. Cloud environments, DevOps procedures are very common there. Chef can help with being able to quickly spin up machines. Just a quick note, our cloud formation templates that Esri publishes actually uses Chef behind the scenes to actually configure instances once they are spun up from our AMIs. So there's just the informational aspect there. And also our AMIs are built with Chef scripts as well that we then end up putting into Amazon, for example, that users then have access to. So we use Chef in a lot of different areas of a cloud infrastructure as well. And then just in general, everybody wants to automate, right? Everyone wants to spend more time. Yeah, is that a question? You think I'm too close, too far away? Is that better or worse? Same? All right, let's just roll with it. Do what? You think it's better? Okay, let's roll with it, see what happens. Where was I? Everyone in general, automate. We all want to spend more time doing real work and less time, watching installs and things like that. So just automation in general is something we all want to achieve. So how do we get started? We're here to learn about Chef. You've heard about it, you've read about it, there may be something on the web about it. But if you wanted to later today or later tonight in your hotel room, because I know you're not going to have anything else better to do, you may want to go out and try this, or next week when you get back in the office. It's like, well, let's get started. Well, first let's, just at a very high level, what is Chef? Chef is a open source platform. It's one of the more popular tools to do IT automation, in your infrastructure, DevOps types of capabilities. Chef is supported on Windows and Linux, so any of you Linux environments out there, this is supported as well. There's various things that make up Chef. Most importantly are this concept of sticking with the kitchen theme. There's a chef, and the chef has cookbooks, and cookbooks are made up of recipes. So there are various components which we'll kind of go over here within the Esri cookbooks here in a moment to explain it a little bit more. And then there's also, Chef comes with a server technology as well as a client. So I'm going to show you a single machine deployment using what we call the Chef client. And the chair is going to show you a more advanced way of doing it using Chef server within an environment. All right, so what is a recipe? ArcGIS, what is a Chef recipe? So we've gone through a lot of effort to pull together all these recipes that basically will install and configure ArcGIS Enterprise within your environment. So for every one of the pieces that it installs, it has to know certain information, such as attributes on how to do the installation, such as, hey, when you install Portal and create the site, use this as the Portal admin, use this as a password, install it in this location. There's many different attributes and actions as well, like install, configure IIS, configure the web adapter. So recipes are made up of a number of attributes and actions that you then sort of pull together into a configuration run, which is generally known as a cookbook. Okay. So by default, we've within the recipes, we've defined a number of attributes and we've set default values of those. But then when you define your run file, basically you want to now go execute a configuration, you have the ability to take the defaults, or within a JSON file, which I'm going to go over here in a little bit, you can override those defaults with your own values. So so that's basically what we kind of want to get into basically here next is, just think about the properties that are available, and then your run list. Once you set those properties, then you basically have a run list saying, okay, now go do these things. Okay, these things use those attributes we were just talking about to go do a system check. Does this thing have the minimum system requirements? Configure IIS if it's not installed, or maybe it doesn't have all the the right ASP.NET configuration set up. Install server. There's different things that you can do, and one machine you can install everything, or on another machine you can just install server, for example. So there's a number. It's up to you of how you create a distributed environment using Chef. So this is just a quick slide of, how do you get started real quick. And I'm going to kind of jump into a remote desktop session here in a moment. Just a few things. So the first thing you have to do is you need to go to GitHub, it's public, and look at our Chef Cookbook's website. We have recently released version 3.0, which has been updated to support 10.5 ArcGIS Enterprise. So you can go grab the latest cookbooks that we've built for you there. The next thing you have to do is then install Chef Client. Okay, so you can just go out to the Chef website, download the client. It needs to be 12.5.1 or later, and that's basically the executing agent that actually runs your cookbooks on your server. After you go check out the website, you're going to download the latest release of our cookbooks. You're going to unzip it. I'm taking some very simple defaults here for a simple, like I said, a single machine deployment. The next thing you have to do is you have to stage your setups, your EXEs, right? Chef doesn't know where those are. So you then have to make those accessible, either bring them down to the server or put them on a network share where it's going to be able to say, hey, these are where all of my installs are. Go out there and install from those locations. You also have to stage your license files, right? Chef doesn't automatically create Esri license files for you. So you also have to account for getting your license files, provisioning files in place so that the install can use those as well. All right, then after you do that, you're ready to kind of pull one of these JSON files together. We provide some as part of the example, which we're going to look at, and then it's just as simple as running at that point, okay? So I say at this point, let's just kind of jump into a server here. We're going to do some easy Italian cooking. Actually, just some chef cooking. All right, unfortunately, I need to change my resolution here to make this work well. And it takes, for some reason, a few seconds for things to magically kind of readjust. Okay. Okay, so this is a clean machine, a clean server I've stood up. All right, so what have I done so far? I've only done a couple things. But if you go back to my easy steps, the first thing I did is I downloaded the Chef client and installed it. I didn't really feel like having you sit here watch me install the Chef client. Okay, I downloaded version 12.15.19. There are many different versions out there at this time. Okay. The next thing I've done is I have downloaded the it appears I'm having a small network issue. Oh, all right. Whew. It's almost a disaster. All right. When you install Chef, if you take the defaults, it installs Chef under ops code. And it also creates a Chef folder. That's where it kind of looks for things by default. I have downloaded from the GitHub website the ArcGIS 3.0 cookbooks and unzipped them into the Chef folder. Okay. There are a number of cookbooks. This is where all the hard work has been done, but really what we're doing is we're kind of going to go to the roles folder. So we have provided a number of roles or configurations that you can now execute to go install something on your server. So I have modified, let's see, which one did I modify? WebGIS Windows. So this is part of the download zip file, and I have now kind of adapted this to my own system here. So that's what I have open here. Okay. So there are a number of things in here. I have parameters that I'm going to override, and then I actually have the run list of the actionable recipes that it's going to go execute and use these parameters, and any parameters that weren't defined here is just going to take the default. So what are some things that are going to happen here? I've basically have defined where the setup executables are for all of my pieces of software. I've downloaded them to my C drive in this particular case. Where appropriate, I have specified the server that, a license file, server, admin, the PSA accounts, username and passwords, etc. So you may be sitting there wondering, it's like, that's cool. How do I know what all attributes or parameters out there that I could include in one of these files? Great question if you were thinking that. All right, sorry I don't have this up, but if you go to GitHub, to the public Esri organization, and if you just happen to look for, I think it's called what, ArcGIS Cookbooks now?
Yeah, dash cookbook. Yeah.
Should find it pretty easily. And the important place here is you need to go to the wiki. That's sort of where we have documented help for this pretty well. Okay, and there's a number of topics out here that explain these things. Getting started, basically what I'm kind of overviewing with you today is basically the information that's kind of configured here and the how to get started on Windows or Linux. But there's also documentation on all of these recipes. So if you go to the ArcGIS Enterprise, what it does is it starts to detail all the different actions and attributes for each one of the processes that you could build into one of these JSON files for configuration. All right, so this defines every piece of software or action you could run, as well as the attributes that you can either take the default or input your own to override. So the wiki provides very good information and details on all the different attributes. All right, so at this point, I have my file ready to run. I got my I got my setups here. I have a license file there. So now at this point, a clean machine is like, what? I'm ready to do my single machine deployment. What do I do now? Well, fortunately, I'm a new person, so I was like, okay, well, let me see. You can go back and look at my slide, but at the same time, you scroll down here, it's like, okay, I've done this. Oh, okay. I need to run chef solo-j and then point to a JSON file. All right, let's see if I can type. And I'm not sure how well you guys can see that. It may be kind of small. -j, and then I'm going to specify the location. So chef / role / WebGIS Windows. All right, everyone cross your fingers. Hope everything is right. Go. So what's happening right now is Chef Solo is sort of initializing. What he's going to do is look at my JSON file, go through and validate, hey, is your EXEs, can I really get to them? Are your license files there? I'm going to go through and do some system verification. And if everything looks good, then I'm just going to go ahead and kick off and go. So basically what's happening now is, first it did, if you go back and look at this, the first thing it did is ran this recipe. I'm not exactly sure what that recipe is, but it's probably kind of just a system check saying, hey, are you good? Is everything good on this system before we proceed? Then
yes, exactly. That's make sure your machines meet our system requirement.
Sure. Then it's going to configure IIS. By default, when you install Windows 2012, for example, IIS may not be enabled or all the features aren't there that the web adapter needs. So it's going to go through and start to do some of that configuration. And then it's eventually going to install ArcGIS Server. It's then going to install the web adapter and configure it with Server, create the site and configure it. It's going to install the data store and configure it to your ArcGIS Server. It's then going to install Portal, the web adapter, configure it, and then even at the end of this, it does federation. Okay. Just so you know, with IIS, you can also configure this, and the GitHub details this. If you have a properly signed SSL certificate for your web server, you can set this up so it automatically does that as part of everything as well, gets that in place for you. If you don't, which I've done here, I have not done that, it's going to create a self-signed certificate for your web server. So when you hit the site the first time, it's going to, you're going to have a self-signed certificate issue display. So now we're going to sit here for the next hour and watch this. No, I'm just kidding. I just wanted to kick that off, let it run. This probably won't finish by the end of their session. I think it takes about an hour, but we can come back and check on it right at the end. But basically, it's going through and doing its thing right now. So in an hour or so, you can go out to lunch, whatever, get a cup of coffee. You can tell your boss, like, I've really worked hard today. Look at all this stuff I've set up for you, and away you go. All right. So at this point, that was just what I wanted to cover up front is, I don't know if you had a lot of questions of how do I just get started, and this is just very quickly you could be off and running within your environment. Quick question.
Actually,
two quick questions.
Does it work with 10.4, and can you use your config XML file?
Your config XML. Oh, from your previous ArcGIS server install. The cookbooks do support 10.4, is that correct?
Yes.
But I'm not sure about the configuration file.
We first released it at 10.3.1, at 10.4 we started to have this wiki page. So 10.4, yes. But it's not XML file, it only takes JSON file. You transfer your XML file's property into this JSON file. That's how it's going to work. Yeah.
One more quick question. Well, I mean, it depends on what you install on each machine. On some machines, you may only be installing ArcGIS Server. I mean, here, I'm installing the full stack, so that's why it's just going to take a little bit long in this situation. So it all depends on your environment, how fast your machines are, and things like that. All right, so we're going to let this run and check on it at the end of the session. I'm now going to turn it over to Chair.
Thank you. We'll take more questions at the end. Next, I'm going to talk about what's new at 10.5. We've had it since 10.3.1. What's new at 10.5, and we'll dive into some more advanced options, how to do some distributed deployment. At 10.5, of course, we support 10.5 software, and you probably already know we have portal for ArcGIS, ArcGIS Server as a hosting server, ArcGIS data store for different roles, and web adapter, like what Bill just demoed. Altogether, we call it base ArcGIS Enterprise. And then also we still have ArcGIS Server as different roles now for geoanalytics for image server. We also support those configuration as well, and you federate it with your base ArcGIS Enterprise. We also have other ArcGIS software, mostly like a desktop, ArcGIS Pro, Insight. We have recipe for those as well. But relatively, those are fairly easy. Not like the Enterprise have a lot of configuration. Those are fairly easy. But if you want to do it from beginning to the end at the whole site, we have those recipes as well. And this is what I got from our documentation. This is all different architectures we offer at 10.5 now. So our cookbook, naturally, we support those configuration as well, those deployment patterns. Actually, last year when we did this presentation, right, we got user feedback that we want to upgrade. So we added 10.4.1 to 10.5. We added upgrade. Well, when you add a previous version of ArcGIS, you can upgrade to 10.4.1 to 10.5. What you need is that you need to say which version you want, and you need to give the new setup, of course, 10.4.1 or 10.5 setups, and the new license file, especially the 10.5. They all take all new license file. That sounds very easy or very simple. All you need to give is this. Just actually, I want to emphasize here. If you use Chef to set up your previous deployment, then it is easier to upgrade to the latest version. But if you didn't, you manually set it up, it will be more bumpy because you need to tell Chef. Now, didn't use Chef before. Chef didn't know how you set it up. Now you need to make sure you tell Chef all the parameters. As Bill mentioned earlier, there are some default values. If you didn't define in this, and the Chef might mess it up, might take it wrong. For example, the default run as account for ArcGIS software in Chef, what we provide, is called ArcGIS. Most of you are probably not using that. When you upgrade, you didn't define that. Chef might change that. It's probably not something you want. So, if you didn't set it up before, you still can do it. Just be prepared. You probably need more testing and more design. Think about all these default values you need to provide it correctly. And we also have a better support, Linux support at 10.5. Chef is very native to Linux. If you're on the Linux world, this is started there. But we are Esri, right? Windows is a very important platform to us. So we spend a lot of time on Windows. We did a lot of testing at the beginning on Windows. For example, this ArcGIS Cookbook. For Linux, there are other cookbooks for Tomcat, for other web servers. For Windows, actually, we have to write ArcGIS ourselves. It's not that many resources. And then, but Linux is another platform we have. So at a 10.4.1 and 10.5, we put a lot of effort into Linux support as well. We tested more platforms. These other platforms, we really have outside development team to test it as well. And we have a lot better, well-defined workflows. In the Chef world, they like you to be the super user. They provision this whole machine from beginning to the end. You start this VM, you probably want to install everything on the fly. But for ArcGIS software, that's not always the case. A lot of our users don't have this super user privilege. So we have these workflows. You only deploy our software. You can do, your system administrator probably have more super user privilege. They did your Tomcat, they did your port 80, they did all this. And then our ArcGIS can come in at that moment that integrate very well with your system. And we also have some other GIS functions. For example, that's another feedback we got from previous presentations that people like to publish, right? I deploy the whole thing. Now I have the server definition files. I want to publish them as a service. Then we added that as well. You tell us what your service and some basic parameters, we can publish that as well. And at 10.5, we added this repository concept is tell us a folder where all your setup is. You just need to tell us the version. Then we pick which one is the version you wanted when we deploy that. So this is, someday, if we have as a repository, we can do that too. But today, you set up your own repository and we can do that. And next, Bill did a quick demo on how you quickly start. And as earlier, that slides I have that all those deployments at 10.5, you see that we have a lot of distributed setup now. You base deployment, and they probably tell you your server roles, different server roles, and geoanalytics need to be on a different machine. Your spatial temporal data store need to be on a different machine. Then how do I do the distributed setups? And we'll talk about how to do that distributed deployment and some other advanced options. When you do a distributed deployment, you can do it two ways. First, just like what Bill demoed, you can still log on to every single machine. Just give different JSON file. So this machine, you run base enterprise deployment. And this machine, you are geoanalytics server. This is the portal information. After you deploy yourself to go to federate with the server somewhere else, you can still do that. That's kind of like you control, you go to do it. Another way is through the Chef server. Chef server basically is a central repository, has all your configurations, all your cookbooks, basically just all the information there. And then you have probably a lot of machines on the right side in this chart that Chef server is aware of. You assign these different machines different roles. For example, right, this is a portal. This is a standby portal, secondary portal. And then this is your server. This is all the other servers. This is my file server. You assign different roles to different machines. All the machines have the same roles, will get the same properties, same JSON file, and do exactly the same executions. They will be configured the same way. And then for Chef server, you can set up one Chef server yourself. Like we have one internally to Esri. You can also use the Chef organization. They have a hosted server you can use. That's what I'm going to use the demo today. You can have up to 5 machines for free to manage 5 machines. When you have more than 5 machines, you need to pay them. So today in my demo, I have 4 machines. And but when you set up your own server, then you can manage multiple machines yourself. This is the Chef manager. We are automation world, right? We don't really use GUI that much, but they do have a manager that give you a general concept of what's going on. Next, I'm going to do a quick demo that how you use Chef server to deploy this distributed deployment. In my demo, I'm going to use a hosted server. I have a workstation, basically it's my machine. Then I'm talking to Chef server. All the demo I'm going to do in a little bit is happening on this machine. I'm talking to the Chef server. And then I have one machine, just like what Bill demoed, that's a base enterprise deployment. Portal server data store is whole set. And that machine is called base.devsummit.com. And then I want to do some geoanalytics. So I have a server machine that's a geoanalytics role that's going to be federated with base. And then you know that probably that if you want to do geoanalytics, you need a spatial temporal data store, which is actually federated, actually registered to the hosting server on the base enterprise. And general rule is 1 geoanalytics machine, 1 spatial temporal data store. That's just a general requirement from 10.5. And today I only have 1 machine. Someday your geoanalytics task grow really big. You probably bring in more machines. Then I need a file server, so get ready for the whole deployment to grow. I put my config store, my spatial temporal data stores backup, and my server directories on this file server. And then this is my internal deployment. Most of you probably, my whole deployment has a public URL, public-facing URL, basically my application, here we call it portal.webgis.net. Similarly, you probably called application.esri.com, something that's different from internal, but that's our public-facing URL. As required by portal, you're supposed to get a certificate for the WebGIS testing.net, which I get that, so we are ready to go. Let me remote desktop to my workstation. This machine just happened to be on Amazon. I'm not doing anything special, I just use the machine. So I don't have to go back to the firewall to my machine inside Esri. So I set up everything in Amazon. This is my workstation machine. As Bill mentioned earlier, what do? You go to our repository, you download the cookbook. Together with the cookbook, we also have a sample zip file, which is setting up the Chef server. the sample. You download this file as well, and when you this downloaded, you unzip it. In there are 2 folders. One is called environments. Inside there's a JSON file. This JSON file apply the let me do this. If you can see this, it's very similar to what Bill had, right? This is also the properties you define. It assigned to all the machines inside this environment. Environment, you can think of it like this way. I have an environment called QA. I have an environment called dev or production. So different environment, that's how your chef server maintain these machines. And every machine in this environment share these properties. There's also a rows folder. I have 4 machines, right? So I have 4 rows. And the machine with this row base enterprise have this property files in here, the run list that's here. So this is some samples we have. You can, just like what Bill did, you get the properties that's fitable for you, and you change these properties. And now what you do is you are ready to upload them, which use the knife command. This upload. You can upload rows, you can upload environments, you can upload the whole structure you have. We'll upload all these properties into your chef server. And I did it for 3 of the machines just to be quick. And this is a command to use to upload. When you upload them, you'll see this is environment will be set up on your chef server. And different rows will be set up on your chef server. That's the first thing. So I'm right thing. Next thing you want to do is you want to bootstrapping, basically provision these machines. What it does is it will install the chef client for you. It will do like what Bill just did that. Basically, prepare these machines to be ready to take your commands. And I have a list here just to be quickly to demo. And the bootstrapping command, this is a command. And I did it for the other 3. I just quickly demo you how to do it with this 4th one. This is the GA server. This is what I'm going to do. I'm bootstrapping my GA machines to get it ready to do this, to take command from us. And then the next step to do is to add a run list, basically tell you what row you are, which machine, what row you are. In this case, your row is the GA server, the row that I defined earlier. And the next one is to environment. Which environment you to be earlier seen, you are in the dev environment. And then in this moment, this machine is totally ready to take to be configured. And then the command to configure this machine is this. Basically, tell all the machines that having the same row, run this command, take the configuration from server, and configure yourself. For the base enterprise, similarly, it will take an hour, just exactly the same time when you did chef solo. This because that's exactly what configuration we did. So when we come back to the chef server to take a quick look, is I have all these 4 nodes. This is from my previous testing, and they have the GA server, the roles, the attributes, just like what we defined early, all these properties right here. And then at the end of this deployment, I did it before this session that you have your whole ArcGIS Enterprise ready to go. If you can sign in using your the one you defined in my JSON, what was it? Esri dot whatever default was. This is right after the deployment. It's ready for your GIS functionalities, right? This is the let me take a look at it. We have the two servers. The base enterprise set it as a hosting server, and the GA server setting at the geoanalytics server. So your deployment's ready at this moment. And then the good part about Chef, right? Let's say a Chef server. Let's say I'm very happy with this deployment. I'm happy with how it is. What you need to do is you just need to run. It's not done yet. Okay. What you need to do, you can do a download command. You download the whole configurations from your Chef server. You make a backup of that. So when you are ready to deploy exactly the same environment, or you need to quickly recovery, you just need to upload the whole thing and then run exactly the command we gave earlier, which is right here. Right? I'm not sure if you can see it clear. You do a upload, you do the bootstrap, you do the run list add, and the environment, run this command. This is your automation script. You just run this whole PowerShell script. You recover exactly the same environment to what it was before. That's the part I really like. When I'm happy with one deployment, I make a whole backup, and I'm ready to quickly recover at any moment. Okay, now we continue with our slides. This is the earlier. Okay, some of other deployment options, right? We mentioned that you can take the ready-to-use ArcGIS Cookbook. You can pick up the recipe you want, and then define the properties you want. You can also combine with other cookbooks out there in the community. Like, for example, some of you is probably not using Tomcat. You are using JBoss. There's JBoss cookbook out there. You can take those people and combine, and then when you write some yourself, you can contribute back. It's an open source project. And you can write new recipes, right? We start to have people write and contribute back. And of course, you can write your own whole cookbook. Hopefully, you don't need to do that because we write the code already. You can just take the code, and you can just define the property. That's the good part, right? We write the code, and you decide how you want to configure it. Some other useful points that we collected through our testing and communicating with our customers. A lot of our important customers in this disconnected environment. How do you do this in those environments? Very similar, but you just need to stage a lot of things internally that you can access. Like you probably won't be able to access the Chef client download. Just put somewhere that you can access to. And then make sure the license file and your setup is all in the location that you can access to. And if you use Chef server, you'll probably have to set up your own Chef server internally. At the end, we want to just share some key points with you. Automation, Chef automation, one kind of automation, and any automation, what do? They automate your manual workflow. You can manually do it, then we can automate. If your manually will be failed, then of course automation will fail too. You give a wrong license file, then will fail. So just keep that in mind. Automate is basically saving your manual works. And Bill earlier mentioned the Python API, and we also have some ArcGIS, some other automating tools. You combine them, right? What we focus here is the deployment, the infrastructure. When you set up the whole infrastructure, for example, you quickly recover using Chef server to what you were before, then you probably have these Python API automations. You combine them together, you recover all your GIS work as well. And the good thing about this Chef ArcGIS cookbooks, it doesn't require program skills. I mentioned earlier, I'm a PE. Actually, I don't do code, but I use this every day, and with different configurations. And we have a daily build every day, so we do this almost every day. And it's not a magic wand. It really requires upfront investment. You want to do a really good design, exactly what you want. How is your configuration? And then very importantly, you test it. You make sure it works, so when really quickly recover, you know it's going to work. But all these upfront investment, give you benefit back because it's very repeatable. You are successful once, you know you're going to succeed again. Just save your work, save your property files. And then this is really helpful when you very successfully deploy your production to make sure it's the same as your QA environment and take you a lot less downtime when you want to quickly recover. Well, that's summarize our presentation today. And next we'll take some questions.
All right, so real quick, I'm just clicking back. Let's check on the status of my Chef run. So I don't have much to show at this point, but if we look through what it has done, it has, like I said, configured IIS, it has installed ArcGIS server, it has licensed it has created the site, it's installed and configured the data store, and now it's on to the last couple of pieces here of installing Portal, then we'll install the web adapter and then go from there. So it's cruising along at the the best that it can cruise along. So anyway, there. We got a few minutes here at the end. Questions? Yes, sir. OpsWorks and AWS.
The question is, do support AWS OpsWorks? Actually, what we are working there is we use their framework, the AWS OpsWorks we do, but it's not really presented to the end user. You don't need to go through those. You just use a CloudFormation. You answer those questions in the CloudFormation. What we do there, we collect your information and plug into Chef and then work it that way. So it is internally, we are using those frameworks, but as an AWS user, you don't need to know this. You don't need to know all of these services. And one problem with OpsWorks, we cannot really present it, is Ubuntu with Linux. Windows were also platform, so we wrap it up the way that as an AWS user, you only see the questions from the CloudFormation creating GUI wizard. I don't know if that makes sense. Is that
So I understand correctly, for an AWS deployment, you recommend doing that, and I put that into CloudFormation.
yes, yeah.
And I won't find anything optional necessarily.
Exactly. You just it just asks you. So for AWS user, you use our CloudFormation, that you answer those questions, and then you deploy all these 10.5 architectures automatic for you. Yeah. Go ahead.
What's the total number of servers you can deploy for free?
5. The question is, actually, with the hosting existing of the solution, the hosting Chef solution, up to 5 free servers, and then more than 5, you pay Chef.
Yes, sir.
Go ahead.
Process generally the same if you were upgrading, say, when you want to upgrade from 10.5 to 10.6, is there anything different that you would end up having to do with this, or would you essentially just change your file?
The question is upgrade the same process as when you do a fresh deployment? The answer is yes. You run exactly the same Chef command like Bill did. You just give that JSON files different. Yes. Actually, all these Chef is exactly the same command as what Bill demoed, just different JSON file. And the Chef server too, I demoed 4 machines. You have 40 machines, also the same steps, exactly the same way.
Yes, sir.
Another question. I think you had a slide on this, and my question is about managing content, or after the infrastructure stood up, how to use Chef to manage your content, the app service.
Yeah. I mean, I think we do have some, based on some feedback we got last year, we created some cookbooks to publish services. Is that correct? Chef is, we can do that, but we also have, just to highlight some other capabilities, for publishing a whole bunch of services or something like that, maybe something like the Python API or something like that may be a little bit easier to use at that point. But you can publish services. We did pull together some sample recipes to publish services with Chef as well.
So Chef is really good at deployment. Publishing service could be part of your deployment, could be something later on you do, right? Yeah.
that it? Are we doing surveys? I'm not very knowledgeable. Are you supposed to do a survey at the end of this? All right. Do your surveys. We appreciate it. If you got any more questions, feel free and come up. And thanks for coming.
And we really like to hear from you. You know, we do take your feedbacks really. We
Yeah,
appreciate
absolutely.
that, yeah.
I don't know if Cherry said this, but on the GitHub site where you download our cookbooks, you know, that's an open site. If you run into problems, log issues out there, there's several of us that look at those. So feel free to, you know, log issues, ask questions out there on GitHub as well.
And then if you run into problem with our cookbook, you can also call Esri support. They take your calls on those problems too. They probably won't take your call from some other people's cookbook, but they take ours.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.